Okay, SummerRae. So now we're going to talk about your fifth house. Now, your fifth house, it shows how you express romance, joy, creativity, and you have two signs in your fifth house. You don't have any planets in your fifth house, but the energies and the planets of the signs in your fifth house are going to govern your fifth house anyway. Those energies still exist whether you have planets there or not. So, what we'll do is we'll blend the energies of Taurus and Gemini as it relates to creativity, romance, and joy. So, because you have Taurus on the fifth house cusp, sensuality, creativity through the senses, stability, loyalty in love, basically very traditional in this aspect of life. You tend to find joy in tangible things, tangible activities, cooking, music, art. Maybe you make music, maybe you sing, maybe you play an instrument, or you would get a lot of joy if you did learn to do those things. Crafting, scrapbooking, anything that's creative that produces a tangible result would bring you joy. You take your fun seriously. In other words, you value loyalty. Your love language is probably physical touch because this house also governs sex and love making and that sort of thing. But your aesthetic is more toward luxury items, but simple. I'll give you for instance. Of course, Taurus is ruled by Libra. And, Taurus is ruled by Venus, which also rules Libra. I'm sorry, I misphrased that. And the way Libra decorates is completely different than Taurus. And the way Libra expresses certain things like art, joy, creativity is a lot different, well, a bit different than Taurus. Libra's is going to be more maybe flashy, showy, that sort of thing. And Taurus is going to be more grounded and earthy, but still luxurious in its own way. And so that's a theme for you as far as fifth house matters. Also, Gemini is in your fifth house, and it's going to have to do with curiosity, variety, playfulness, communication. And with Gemini there, your creativity is light, social, mentally stimulating. You may express yourself through teaching, writing. You may have a lot of hobbies with Gemini here. You might start a lot of projects and struggle to finish each one individually with Gemini here. You probably enjoy children. Whether you have your own children or not, they are probably a big source of joy for you. And I know some people would say, well, that's true of everybody. No, it isn't. There are people I know, they do not want to be around children at all. They can't be bothered. But you with this aspect, you're probably kind of a child yourself when you get around children. You probably take on somewhat of a teaching role, and they probably find that you are funny and witty and able to communicate with them very well. Children of school age, like 3, 4, 5, especially in that range there. And so I would say that probably the best ways to try to express this aspect is to write about love or beauty. Maybe write love stories, or um, something about how to improve the appearance. Okay. And with Taurus being here, you're probably going to be drawn to music. And if you don't play an instrument and don't have any musical inclinations, perhaps you could try to pick up even a simple instrument like an auto harp. It'd probably bring you a lot of joy if you're not doing this already. As far as romance, if the intellectual stimulation isn't there, and the stability isn't there, it's really not gonna be there much for you. You're not gonna really want to stay with a partner that can't provide stability and intelligence, and be quick-witted and funny and that sort of thing. And these people, they want to charm and they want to flirt usually. And if they don't, it might be something that you may want to develop, because you may find it fun to do so, even if you're already in a relationship or married. I don't know what your situation is, but just remember that this house, the underlying planet and ruler of the 5th house, is Leo and the sun. And so when there are challenging aspects to this house, or the degrees of this house, like Mars or Pluto, in aggressive, harsh aspects, you might find yourself not enjoying fun so much. You might find yourself getting into problems when you are trying to enjoy recreational activities like going to the fair, or whatever it is you enjoy. So now I'm going to get on with your 6th house. Okay, so the 6th house is the house that I like to call the house of serve or suffer. This is your job. This is not your career, this is your job. Okay? But you have Venus here. So you probably get along well with coworkers. You are probably favored by your coworkers. You're probably social, graceful, diplomatic in the work environment. You're probably a really good collaborator, and you probably really try to show tact at work, even though that might not be fun. But because Venus is here, you might spread yourself too thin in relationships and work. And you really got to be careful about that, because there's an expression that my mother used to say, and it is, you can't pour from an empty pitcher. Okay? So you got to be careful of spreading yourself so thin that you're not taking care of yourself. And with it being in Gemini, you probably work in your local community, and everybody's like, well, everybody works in their local community. No, some people have a 1-hour commute, even more than that. I used to work with a guy that drove an hour and a half to work and an hour and a half back every day. He had actually Sagittarius ruling his sixth house, showing that he had to travel for work. So it is different because Gemini is ruling this house. Also, the sixth house deals with pets, okay? And it deals with health. And so, because you have Venus here, when it comes to health, you have to watch anything that's Venus related. And that's going to be anything that rules Taurus and anything that rules Libra. You know, Libra is the kidneys, Taurus is the throat. Okay? And so, because you have this placement, your affection is expressed by helping others, bringing ease to other people's lives, trying to make things easier for other people. You could work in design, writing, communication somehow, because of Venus being in chatty, communicative Gemini. And so, yeah, I want to look up, let's see, I guess your seventh house is going to be next. You have a bit more going on in the seventh house. You have 2 planets in the seventh house. And so that should be interesting. So anyway, also with Venus and Gemini, you may or may not know this, but you could have a relative that has a crush on you. It could be a cousin, a second cousin. I know people think that's kind of gross, and I understand that, but back in the olden days, people actually married their cousins. Now, I'm not saying this is the case with you. I'm not saying you've had an affair with a cousin or anything like that, because like I said, most people think you know, when they think of that. But I'll give you a for instance. My seventh house is ruled by Gemini, and seventh house is relationships, which is also the underlying house is Libra, ruled by Venus. And I accidentally brought home someone I was related to. I didn't know we were related. My mother had to tell me because of his last name that we were related. And I wasn't familiar with that last name, and it's a long story or whatever, but you know, there is that possibility. So now I'm going to move on to your seventh house. Oh, also with Venus in the sixth, it's possible that you could have an attraction to or marry someone that you work with or someone you work for. I almost forgot to mention that. So there could be the potential for being attracted to someone in the workplace or having them attracted to you. Now, you may already be married. I'm not sure about your situation, and this may not apply to you now. I'm just saying it's a potential because of that placement. Now, in the seventh house, you have Cancer and Leo governing that house. And like I said, you do have 2 planets there, Mercury and the Sun. Okay, now the seventh house rules things like open enemies, the courtroom, partnerships, marriage. Okay, the eighth house rules some of that too, but the eighth house is more about intimacy, life insurance policies, that sort of thing when it comes to partnership. So it's more the money side of the relationship. Okay, now when you have Leo and Cancer ruling this house, it's it's because you have Leo there, you're going to attract really confident, bold, charismatic people. You want a loyal partner, of course, because Leo rules loyalty. And some people say, well, everybody wants a loyal partner. No, they don't. Some people are swingers, married couples. Okay. They do still consider themselves loyal to a point to each other. But, swingers and loyalty are not exactly hand in hand. Okay. So you like loyalty, warmth. You like a person that's proud of themselves, that carries themselves with confidence. Your relationships are going to be dramatic sometimes. I know everybody's relationships are dramatic. No, they're not. They're not. I know people that have absolutely no drama in their relationships. Um, and, you know, these are kind of the people that they're kind of like the romance novel people. Okay, I don't know if you read romance novels or not, but you kind of have that kind of expectation on your partners with this placement. So there has to be an ego balance here because of Leo being in the seventh house in order to really get along in a relationship. You could possibly over idealize your partner with Leo here ruling this house. And, you could be very emotional, reactive because of Cancer being here. It's also because of the Cancer being there, you could potentially get a bit naggy in your relationship, and you could kind of be the mommy in the relationship, the caretaker. And so with those two energies in the house of the seventh house, can be an emotional roller coaster, basically. And some people are like, well, all relationships are emotional roller coasters. No, they're actually not. They're actually not. But you could experience that. Now, as you get older and evolve, you may become less and less prone to that or have less patience for it. And so, basically, with Leo, there, you like to get admiration from your partner. And that's not always the case for everybody. Some people actually don't want attention. I was actually married to someone once that really didn't want attention. And lo and behold, I think he had Virgo in the seventh or something like that. I can't remember. It's been a long time. But yeah. Basically, the Cancer part makes you want comfort, and the Leo part makes you want excitement. And so it's kind of like trying to find a balance between those two elements. Now, with Mercury and Cancer in the seventh, when it comes to your partner, you're kind of like a human mood ring. You can read the room. Nobody has to tell you that somebody's upset or somebody's doing wrong or whatever. You just pick up on this intuitively because of the Mercury in Cancer. You're going to be really sentimental because of Mercury and Cancer being there. Comforting through words. You like to make your partner feel deeply seen and understood. And this also means because you have Cancer in the seventh house of open enemies, you may have an open enemy or more than one open enemy who is a Virgo or a Gemini because of Mercury being there. And so you just need emotional communication, empathy, reassurance. And I know a lot of people say, well, everybody needs that. Well, actually, some people don't. Some people just, I don't know, they're just really independent and they just don't really care much, even what their partner thinks of them. Um, so, sorry. Um, you're going to be the emotional interpreter of the relationship, basically, when it comes to this placement. And so, the main thing you have to watch for with this placement is don't take things so personally, okay? And don't let old emotional hurts replay in the relationship that you're in. This could happen, you know. I got into an argument with my husband. I have Gemini in the 7th, and I let, replaying the past because, Gemini is 2. And so I was actually thinking of someone else, and I was relating to him as I was thinking of someone else and their behavior. So, yeah. So that's the difference. It just depends on what is in your 7th house. And now we'll look at the sun in the 7th, and it's in Cancer. So you are a Cancer sun. Okay, you have the sun in the 7th, and it's in Cancer. So, because the sun rules the father in a chart, you're going to attract strong partners who are influential. You're going to want to be seen and appreciated. And with the sun in Cancer, you're going to be caring and protective. You're going to nurture family relationships. And, the sun is also, because it rules the father, it is your father's message to you. I don't know if he was present or not. I don't know if you were adopted. I don't know any of that. But with the sun here, it says that the father's message to you is be concerned with your home and your family. Be a nurturer. Keep house. That sort of thing. And a lot of people would say, well, that's the same with everybody. Everybody's father tells them that. No, they don't. My son is in the 10th house in Libra. My father told me his message to me was be a freaking boss, you know. So it's just different depending on where the sun is in a chart. And so also with Mercury there, you may have had some open enemies with family members, cousins, siblings, that sort of thing. So, yeah, you're basically going to be a caretaker, okay? And you're going to seek a partner who feels like home with this placement. Now it's time for your 8th house, and you got a lot going on in the 8th house for sure. Now, I said the 7th house rules things like partnership and marriage and relationships, but the 8th house goes deeper. It's like the next level of that. And it's going to be about emotional and sexual intimacy, the hidden and the mysterious, psychological healing and transformation. It's going to be about shared finances, like joint assets, debts, inheritances, life insurance policies, that sort of thing. So, of course, with Leo here, you're going to expect to feel special and respected and adored. And that is not the case for everybody. Some people just couldn't care less how they are viewed by their partner. So, sorry. Your emotional and financial entanglements, because of Virgo being there, you're going to be very logical about them and you're going to pay attention to details. When it comes to intimacy, you don't want a lot of crazy stuff. You just want a healthy, intimate relationship that's functional, that's honest. You're probably going to be drawn to psychology and finding ways to help other people transform. You, because Virgo is here coloring this house, you could get into overthinking and leave your feelings behind. So, with this placement too, because Virgo is in there, you're probably really good at managing shared money or shared finances. You want to improve and perfect 8th house matters because of Virgo being here. Now, there is the danger of I can fix him, okay, because of Virgo being there. Because Virgo is perfectionistic. Okay, so you're going to be perfectionistic when it comes to intimacy and deep partnership that comes from the 8th house. So now I will get on to, let's see, you have the North Node in Leo. You have Jupiter in Virgo, the Moon in Virgo, and Saturn in Virgo. So all of those planets are also going to influence this 8th house. Okay, so the North Node is what we need to embrace in life, the qualities that we need to develop. Okay, and it's in Leo. So you've heard the expression, what would Jesus do? Well, when you have North Node in Leo, it's what would Leo do? Okay, so it looks like your sun is in Cancer. And so if your North Node was also in Cancer, then you wouldn't really have to ask yourself what another sign would do. You would just say, what would Cancer do? And you would already be there because you already know what Cancer would do, right? Cancer would be maternal and nurturing and whatnot. But Leo would follow their heart. They're going to be expressive. They're going to be proud. They're going to be playful. They're going to be seen. Okay. And this kind of, I don't know, they're going to be extroverted. And this kind of clashes with your rising sign of being conservative and kind of blending in and that sort of thing. So the North Node, okay, is telling you don't be afraid to be creative. Don't be afraid to take up painting or something you've never done before. Don't be afraid to speculate. I won't say gamble because that's a really tricky one, and I don't want to encourage anybody to gamble, even though that does. Even though, gambling is, ruled by 5th house matters and connected to Leo. Because of the dangers of becoming addicted to gambling. That's why I don't want to encourage that. And so it's asking you to not be afraid to take the spotlight. Remember, what would Leo do? That's your question in life. That's going to put your South Node in Aquarius. So the South Node is what you need to get rid of, what you need to stop doing, basically. And so that would be anything that rules Aquarius, right? So now I'm going to move on to Jupiter being in Virgo. Jupiter in the 8th house is actually, it's in Virgo in your chart. But Jupiter in the 8th house, you could get an inheritance from that placement. And it could come through things that are ruled by Virgo. So you have two clashing enemies here with Jupiter in Virgo in the 8th. Because Virgo is going to be cautious and perfectionistic. But Jupiter is optimistic, okay? And it might take chances, or it wants to take chances. But Virgo won't let Jupiter go big or go home, so to speak, all the time. So, with this focus, with this placement, you could help others when they are in crisis. You're able to stay calm when things get intense. You would probably be a good 911 operator. I don't know if you've ever done that before. And you could overthink emotional and intimate experiences as a result of having Virgo here. So, to balance these energies, you learn or you grow from learning to trust in transformation and change. And acts of service are important here because of Virgo being here in your intimate relationships and anything that has to do with things like inheritances, things like that, like probate, wills, that sort of thing. You may even, if you haven't already, find yourself being the executress of somebody's will because of this placement. Moon in Virgo in the 8th, people, okay, they have a fear of vulnerability. They like to stay in control when things get chaotic. They're very systematic when it comes to emotions. They overanalyze their emotions because of the Virgo influence. And so the lesson would be, even when things aren't perfect, healing is still sacred. And every day is an act of service, especially when it comes to things like the home and taking care of children. This is, I think it's a good placement, but you may find yourself the caretaker of your mother for some reason, if she's still living, I don't know. You may also inherit through the mother. And of course, you have Jupiter there, which rules the father. So you may inherit through both of them. And also, when the moon is in Virgo, these people tend to be emotionally intelligent. Okay. Not really given to tantrums. Not really feeling like a physical fight so much as an intellectual one. And so, yeah, I think that is a good placement. Even though Virgo can inhibit the emotions and everything, but I think it's good because it helps you analyze emotions, okay, and not allow yourself to get too much out of control in emotional situations. With Saturn in Virgo in the 8th, love gets better with age, okay? Also, with Saturn in the 8th, you become a wise emotional healer. You need to understand that power comes from trust and not control. Virgo wants to control. Saturn also wants to control. Okay. You are going to have responsibility in the area of things like, 8th house matters, wills, anything having to do with the end of life. Like I said, you could possibly become an executress of a will or something like that. And remember also that Saturn takes away. And so the 8th house is about death, rebirth, transformation, and so on. And so you're going to feel the need to take emotional and financial commitments really seriously, because of the seriousness of Saturn. And yeah, so also with this placement, you have to understand that vulnerability is not the same as weakness. It's okay to be vulnerable. Saturn and Virgo people don't really want to be vulnerable, but you have to give yourself that permission in order to get through having this placement. And that is going to take some time and effort.